right, hello. It is day 38. It's day 38, I think. Yeah, but I'm just heading over to a friend's house to get a ride to the school to teach those eighth graders. So, yeah, see you when I see you. All right, just started writing. So this is the word count we're starting with. Let's get it. And there we have it, 1,000. Now we did better today, so gotta say, at least I can say that it was a little productive. Can't lie, can't lie. There you go. I do want to talk about the meat of the video really, because honestly, yeah, 1,000 is good, and what I was kind of just writing one scene that kind of just needs to be there for for the plot to continue. I don't know, can't really say much about it. But really, I'm kind of interested to talk about what I did today for school. I mean, it's my reading week, but my group in my pedagogy class had to teach a class of eighth graders today, which was really interesting. Like it was actually fun, and like I don't know. Let's get into this, right? So I remember hearing, and it's just kind of a meme in general, that like Gen Alpha, because are they even Gen Alpha? They're close to Gen Alpha. Like late Gen Z and Gen Alpha are performing really poorly in school right now. They're reading, and just their literacy level is lower than it's ever been before. And whatever that is the result of, I think it's obvious. But is it true? Now, from what I saw today, there was a really interesting statistic, right? So a lot of the class was missing apparently, but I want to estimate there was probably around 5, 10, 15, 20 kids in there, right? So there's about 20 kids in there. And we asked this question at the beginning of the presentation, because our presentation, to be clear, was about poetry. It was about understanding poetry specifically and just reading it in general. And whoever came up with the title was really clever in our group, because the title was How to Not Make Sense. Because we were just trying to explain that poetry has no rules, right? And well, I can't say I'm particularly well versed in poetry. I have written a decent amount and I have read a decent amount in order to, I think, teach it to eighth graders. So that's fine. But our question was at the beginning, who here writes for fun? And nobody raised their hand up. And I think maybe 2 people did, but I don't know if I want to count it, because they didn't really answer the question in the way that we meant the question to be answered in. Like, they said yes, but not in like, not poetry, not fiction. It was kind of nonfiction, but then one girl was like, "Oh, sometimes I write mean things about people," and then just never show it to them, which is fair. That's like a journal or a diary essentially. So fair enough, but it's, we meant writing for fun in a different sense. Yeah, so I think it got interesting later on in the presentation. I think early on it was a little weird, because we asked them what they thought poetry was, what, are there any rules that they think they can list, stuff like that. And of course we subverted that there are no rules, but they listed a bunch of rules that made sense, and that I think you learn on, pretty early on, because weirdly enough, despite there not really being many concrete rules to poetry, teachers who teach it, it's not, there's no poetry class. It's like when you learn it in English or language arts or whatever the class is called, you just kind of skim over it. You kind of say, these are the rules for this, right? Because school is very rule structured, and they were confused, because they were like, "Oh, it's pretty odd and obscure, and there's a rhythm and sometimes rhymes, and kind of it expresses feelings, which all these things, some are more freeing, others are more structured. But they just had a very typical view of it. The one that I shared when I was 13, 14, I didn't like poetry. In fact, I'm not sure if I would say I hated it or I disliked it. I just didn't have an opinion of it. I didn't care. I thought it was kind of useless. And I was wrong for that. But I don't think they're wrong for thinking that because of just how they were taught. I think they left the class today being like, oh, maybe there's some merit to this. But I don't think any of them were straight up inspired to just write poetry right after. And I don't think that's the point. I think the point is to plant a seed in their head and just leave it there, Because I only started writing poetry or just appreciating it when I was 18, when I went to college. So I get it, right? Like that's not something I can blame them for. But even in my first year in college, I don't think I cared that much. I think I was more like 19 when I straight up actually started to like poetry. And even now, I'm still on the nose because it's as cool as it is. I don't know. It's I do like that structure of like narrative more, right? And that's what I do all the time. And even with narrative, there actually isn't as many rules as one would think. But there is inherent structure in storytelling. And sometimes you could break it if you know it well enough. But I'm getting sidetracked. I'm just mean like the class was interesting. We went on talking about rules, and then I subverted it. Hey, there are no rules. Then we went into reading different poems. One that was really cool was La, I guess it's called La by E.E. Cummings. It's a pretty old poem from like 1958, somewhere around that, circa 1958, where it's this disjointed poem that's kind of a line in a way. That's, if you read it in its intended way, it makes no sense really, but if you read it by connecting is it even syllables? I guess not always even, yeah, because leaf is one syllable, but it's split into two parts, right? So, but if you connect all the words, it says a leaf falls or falling, and then loneliness on the outside of the brackets. And it's cool. I think it's really cool. And I think that they were confused by it, and some of them said they didn't like it. But it doesn't follow any rules. And then when we started asking why is this poem like this, they were like, oh, it got them thinking. And then we got into individual writing time, which I think they liked messing around, just writing random shit. They did not want to share, which is understandable. But when it got to group writing time, that's when it really went crazy. Because one of my friends, Jenna, she brought in these magnetic poetry pieces. This is from the set. And, we didn't use them as magnets. We just used them as words. And our groups, essentially, we split up into 5 groups because there were 5 of us presenting. So one of us went into each group. And we essentially just said, pick out 1 or 2 of these words, write a line using these words, and then write another one, and then write another one, and then connect them as a group. And then read them out loud. So we did that. With my group, it went really well. And I didn't really think it would. But with my group, honestly, not that I thought it would go badly. I just didn't have any expectations going into it at all, which I think really aided me because I was thinking maybe they'd be disinterested. Maybe some of them would be interested. I don't know. I don't remember being 13 that well or what I thought about poetry when I was 13. But they took it really well. And there was these 3 boys I was working with. And they seemed like the types that wouldn't really care. But they were generally interested in just following the instructions. And I said also, don't worry about rules. Break the rules. Do whatever you want, right? Just all you have to do is pick some words out and then use them. and they made up a fucking genius rap beat. Like, it was actually hilarious. Um, you know, and honestly, I think we were all surprised by the lack of brain rot terms in the class. Maybe the schools really cracked down on that, or maybe that just maybe they don't really use it that much. Maybe it's just a meme, but it was really well done. They were very creative. Their rhymes were really on point. Like, their rhymes were so good, and just all around, yeah, I was impressed. I was very impressed, and they were really cool to work with. So that's my experience doing it. After the reflection, I don't think anyone particularly was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a writer now," or I'm just gonna go home and write something. It didn't seem like that to me. They might have not. I don't really. It doesn't really matter, because the seed's there now, and I think it was a cool exercise for me. The reason I'm just saying this in general was like, as a writer, who already in my generation, I remember in school. Excuse me. Already in my generation, I noticed not many people being into books, but I was not worried about it. I was like, okay, I imagine, with the rise of technology, a lot, a lot of kids which would already be disinterested in books and not really care, or be just indifferent, might just be even more turned off. But then kids who do want to read books, or whatever, they're gonna read books. Maybe it'll be harder, but they'll still want to do it. But now, after hearing all this kind of fear mongering on the internet, being like, oh, these Gen Alphas are so stupid, they can't, their reading level is so low. I don't know if that's true. I really don't know if that's true, and I feel like that's low-key offensive now, because maybe some, yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case in maybe North America, where technology is really affecting the younger generations. But I feel like the more when you grow up in this environment, I feel like us Gen Zs were the first to really do that. Because millennials, they didn't have like complex technology at an early age. We did. I was born in 2003. You know what I mean? So like the internet was already popular back then. It was still in its early stages, but it was popular, and um, there was at least, I think, what, like a billion users, maybe more. I don't know the actual numbers, but it was already super, popular, and widely used. The sure, the iPhone didn't exist yet. I witnessed the rise of that as a kid. But technology was generally widespread. I had a DS, I had a Wii, and the game consoles and all types of media already existed before I was born. Uh, but but we grew up with this kind of fast-paced internet world already, and we watched it evolve. But the thing is, we experienced so much of it at a young age. I think the impact is nullified in a little, not completely, but like it's softened, because we're aware now of how it affects us. And I think as humans, we're either very lucky that we found out about it, or we're just really smart. I don't know. It could be a combination of both, where you know we are aware that technology is not all good for us. I don't know when we realized that. Maybe when we tested the first atom bomb, but I think we understand technology has repercussions, and the younger you are using that technology, kind of experiencing all that there is, or like a majority of what there is to experience on the internet, you either get a little bored, or perhaps, I don't know, just jaded. And these kids now, with who are born into a world where, I don't know, the kids I think I was teaching today were born in 2011. And that's crazy to say because I remember the year 2011, right? Like, and yeah, and they were born then, right? I remember like babies, you know, like my friends would have like siblings who were born in 2011 or 2010 or something. I remember those years. But like they were born then when like scrolling was beginning to be invented. I don't know when Instagram was actually invented. Maybe around 2011, or was it 20, somewhere around then, right? And it wasn't really malicious as it is nowadays. You know how like every single social media platform has like reels or some kind of scrolling thing, right? Because, but anyway, it's just they're born into the world where that's common, and I feel like when you have so much access, you get bored and you realize like, yeah, there should be a cap, you know. And some people uh, fall into patterns where like, you know, it's unhealthy. I feel like I've noticed though, like older people get sucked into social media even more than younger people, or just as much, because they don't see that effect as profoundly, perhaps, you know. So either way, this isn't a rant about technology as much as it is showing me like it's not actually that dire. I think interest in storytelling, for example, is always going to be there. That's my field generally. It's my kind of niche. Um, and storytelling encapsulates a lot more than just writing. Writing in particular, though, I is just my favorite kind of medium of creating stories in, because it's so expansive, and specifically like novels, right? Now I don't know how, but then again, I don't know. It's really not. I don't think it's that serious. I think people before, like when my generation was that younger, even younger, I feel like people were, or writers were like, you know, they're fucked. These kids are fucked. They just they don't got the bone in it anymore. You know, they don't got that storytelling bone. They don't got the writing bone. You know, their brains are fried now. Because I don't know. Sure, it wasn't as bad back then. The Everything wasn't as corporatized, or like, no, my bad. That's the wrong word. It was hella corporatized. Um, I don't know, the stuff like Instagram. It wasn't engineered the same way to suck you in for that long. Even YouTube, man. I remember YouTube as a kid. It was not that. It was not made to be super monetized. It was just there for the art of it, right? It was there to broadcast yourself, like I am doing right now, right? It was just there to do that. It was to share your life, your ideas, your stories, whatever, right? So I don't know. I think my experience, and I think my friends could probably agree, this was actually a learning experience for us as much as them, if not more. I feel like they forgot a lot of it already, because poetry's not for everyone, right? And I think by the end of it, I think they were being nice to us too, because we were guest speakers and we're a lot older than them. But I think they were being nice when we asked who still thinks poetry is useless, or this was useless, or do you hate poetry, for example, or do you not like it? And a lot of them didn't raise their hands, right? But I was like, you guys are lying, right? Like, well, dude, if you asked me that at 13, I might raise my hand and be like, yeah, this sucks, right? And perhaps they're conditioned not to question authority. But we wanted them to be like, we're not any authority here. We're just here to just spit the truth about poetics. You know, what else can I say? I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. That was just, yeah, I needed to go on a little rant about it because it was actually that interesting. You know, I just wanted to see. I hadn't been in the middle school for so long, and this was just a really interesting experience. And yeah, I think I probably learned more than they did. And yeah, I think writing's not dead. I think it's not dead. Those who read will want to read. Those who don't have always not really cared. So what's it matter, right? Yeah, but that's it for me today. I think that's day 38, right? So, yep, that's day 38. I'll check in with you tomorrow. But yeah, it was quite a fun day, and I learned a lot.